So I took a break, went back home to Atlanta, and decided to go back to Athens, which is where I was at. I was at UGA for a party. My girlfriends and I drive back up there for a party because, I'm still close with everyone. Yeah. And Marcus was there.
And he's in college football right now?
Yeah, he's at Auburn.
Auburn, okay.
So he's supposed to be in Alabama. I'm supposed to be in Atlanta. This particular weekend, we both end up in Athens.
Yeah.
And we're at this cookout, and oh my God.
Please, I've never heard this story.
It's he'll tell you a different version, but I'm going to tell you what really happened.
Okay, you tell me what really happened.
So we're at this cookout, and I walk over to fix my plate, and I'm putting food on my plate, and BB was hot then, like I had this little BB shirt on, and it was like bedazzled and the BB logo. Yeah, I thought I was cute. So I go to get my food, and I see him and his friends, and I kind of nod because I don't know them, and then I go back to my girlfriend's, which is like a few steps away.
Did you know he was a football player? Because he is huge.
No, I knew he probably I knew he didn't go to UGA.
Yeah.
I had never seen him before because I knew the football players.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if he was an athlete or if he was like an incoming freshman or whatever, right? Yeah. He still had a baby face.
Yeah.
And so
he still does.
Yeah, he does. He still has a baby face. So I hear in the background, psst.
He did that? No, he did not.
He did.
Oh,
he did.
God, that's like when you're driving in the truck.
Girl,
like the workers start.
Right.
Okay.
So I ignore him.
Yeah.
Because I know it's him.
Yeah.
So then I hear, BB. He starts whispering BB.
BB? Why is he whispering and why isn't he just speaking? I would ask him this.
Right.
Yeah.
So he doesn't stop. He does it like 4 or 5 times. I'm like, this guy is not going to stop. So I turn around and give him this look like, okay, you're going to have to do a little better.
Yeah.
So he walks over and he introduces himself and he opens his mouth, girl, and he has a row of gold teeth. So now I'm confused.
Yeah.
Because he has on like this khaki hat, some khaki, like a polo shirt, and then a mouthful of gold teeth. So
I wish he was here. I'd be like, Marcus.
I'm perplexed. I'm like, who is this guy? Yeah. You look like a schoolboy, but you're giving me like hood vibes too, which I kind of liked at that time. So I was like, okay, you can have my number because I have questions.
You're more curious at this time. Like, what is going on with this guy? Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Welcome to the Gina the Latina Show. I am Gina. Make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram at the Gina the Latina Show. Okay, so I have so many friends who once they have kids, they kind of lose themselves. They lose the person they were before. They lose their goals. They lose their motivation. And they kind of come to a place where they feel like they can't do it again. And that's why I wanted to bring our next guest on, Ivy McNeill. She's a mom. She's a lawyer. She's a boss. And she is the true epitome of you can do whatever you want, even when you have kids. So the woman I brought today on the show is someone who I look up to. It's someone who I always describe you to people as like a boss woman because everything you've done in your story when you could have went a different direction just inspires me. Ivy McNeill, she's the founding attorney at Canary and Hedge. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Yeah. And so the reason why I want to do this episode is because I have so many friends and I know so many women who once they have kids or maybe they get married or whatever, they have all these goals before, right? And then they have kids, they get married, and somewhere along the way they lose themselves, right? And they almost come to a point where they feel like they can't go back to themselves either, right? Like, hey, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, I wanted to do all these things. And then now, like, it's almost like their life is over, right? And I will say, and I look at them like, your life is not over, girl. But in their head, at some point, they feel like that and they truly feel, and I've seen women feel defeated like that, right? And that's why I wanted to bring you in, Ivy, because Ivy's a friend of mine. And after hearing your story, pause, it's Gina the Latina. Okay, so what you need to do right now, if you're liking the content, is you need to like, subscribe, and comment because we want to keep this show going. We need to like mess with the algorithm a little bit. So if you like the show, help us out a little bit and make sure you follow us at TikTok and Instagram at the Gina the Latina Show. Okay, let's get back to it. Like I feel like just went against all odds. And you're a boss woman, you're a trademark attorney. Wait, you say the professional stuff. What kind of
Yes.
attorney are you?
So intellectual property, but for people who are not in the legal field, it's business and trademark law because everybody knows for the most part, what a business attorney does and trademarks.
So if you need a trademark, hit her up. She did mine.
Yes.
Okay, so let's back up though. I wanted like from the beginning. Tell me, because you're a lawyer now, obviously, but it didn't start like that. Let's back up way back. Even, did I even mention that your husband was a former NFL player, Pro Bowler, Marcus McNeill?
Big timer.
Yes. So at any point, you could have just like sat back and just became an NFL wife, right?
Right.
Like not NFL wife, that was bad, but you are an NFL wife.
Right. But
Right.
I know what you mean. Kind of like the stereotypical stay-at-home wife who's just kind of like cute at the games.
Yeah. I mean, you're so cute at the games.
Well, I was also in law school.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take a step back.
Mhm.
Let's even take it back before you met Marcus and before. Let's take it back to your childhood. Kind of how'd you grow up? Where are you from?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for having me, girl. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so
But
glad you agreed.
to answer your question, so taking it all the way back, I grew up in Atlanta, 20 minutes outside of Atlanta. A lot of people kind of know the city of Decatur. We have a lot of hip hop artists that reign from Decatur.
Yeah.
But grew up there. I am the middle child. My dad and my mom weren't really together. So you're bouncing from home to home. But I mean, for the majority of my childhood, it was, kind of laid back. I went to some of the high schools in the city, and a couple of times I went to like different schools. My mom moved around a lot, so we would move from school to school. But I was really involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. I was purely academic, and I kind of always knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what that something was. And growing up in those types of schools where, they're not really well funded, they may not have, a lot of resources available to the students, your idea of what you can be is very limited.
Yes.
You don't have a lot of people in your community that represent lawyers or judges or doctors, and so as a child, you can really only envision sometimes what you can see.
Yes.
And so growing up, there was like this idea that I wanted to be great, but I didn't know what that greatness would look like.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that kids that grow up in areas or whatever you're not expected to, we dream. Like
Yes.
I always dreamt of this house and this view,
Yes.
right? It's kind of like this thing like we were manifesting before
Yes.
because it's like almost not a possibility. So
Right.
you're just dreaming and dreaming. So you knew you wanted to be great, you just didn't know what that was.
And more than anything, I know I didn't want to stay where I was.
Okay,
You
yeah,
know what I
me
mean?
too.
It's kind of like, I don't know what this is going to be.
I'm not gonna
but
sit
this
here.
ain't it.
Yeah, I'm getting out. Yeah, okay.
And so it wasn't until I guess around high school when I started realizing that I really did have some really strong academic abilities. I was being provided scholarship opportunities at schools. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to go to college, but I don't know what I'm going to study, but we're just going to take the next step, right? And I get to college, and I always tell people this. I was like, this was that first eye-opening moment for me. I get to college, and I remember having a conversation with a counselor about what my major would be. And at the time, I was like, I'm going to be a journalist. I write well. This will be fun. I'll do it for a fashion magazine. That's cute, right?
Yeah.
And I sit down, and he hands me this book, and it's like this thick. And in it is like every career opportunity available on the face of the earth, like every major, every like course of study. And I was dumbfounded. I was like, wait a minute. I don't even know what this is. What is this study? What is this job? What is this career? So all of a sudden I started second guessing what I was there for. And I'm like,
did you feel like there was a bigger opportunity that you weren't aware of, or were you overwhelmed? Or
I was overwhelmed, and I also felt like I had jumped the gun. Like maybe journalism wasn't for me. Maybe there was something else that I could do that was better suited for me, And so I did get overwhelmed, and I got lost in my vision. I was like, okay, something is not sitting well with me. Like I need to really take a deep dive and figure out exactly what Ivy wants. And so I took a gap year. And in that gap year, I met my husband.
Marcus McNeill, former Pro Bowler, NFL star, all around great human being. So this was
my
after your
junior year. So
Okay.
freshman, sophomore, I finished. After sophomore year, they're generally like, okay, you need to get serious about your major. So this is when we really had this conversation. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to continue just doing anything just for the sake of doing it. So I took a break, went back home to Atlanta, and decided to go back to Athens, which is where I was at. I was at UGA for a party. My girlfriends and I drive back up there for a party because, I'm still close with everyone.
Yeah.
And Marcus was there.
And he's in college football right now?
Yeah, he's at Auburn.
Auburn, okay.
So he's supposed to be in Alabama. I'm supposed to be in Atlanta. This particular weekend, we both end up in Athens.
Yeah.
And we're at this cookout, and oh my God.
Please, I've never heard this story.
He'll tell you a different version, but I'm going to
have
tell
him
you
on the
what
podcast
really
too.
happened.
Yeah. Okay, you tell me what really happened.
So we're at this cookout, and I walk over to fix my plate, and I'm putting food on my plate, and BB was hot then, like I had this little BB shirt on, and it was like bedazzled and the BB logo. Yeah, I thought it was cute. So I go to get my food, and I see him and his friends, and I kind of nod because I don't know them, and then I go back to my girlfriend's, which is like a few steps away.
Did you know he was a football player? Because he is huge.
No, I knew he probably. I knew he didn't go to UGA.
Yeah.
I had never seen him before because I knew the football players.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if he was an athlete or if he was like an incoming freshman or whatever, right? Yeah. He still had a baby face.
Yeah.
And so...
He still does.
Yeah, he does. He still has a baby face. So I hear in the background, psst.
He did that? No, he did not.
He did.
Oh,
he did.
God, that's like when you're driving in the truck,
girl.
Like the workers start.
Right.
Okay.
So I ignore him.
Yeah.
Because I know it's him.
Yeah.
So then I hear, BB. He starts whispering BB.
BB? Why is he whispering and why isn't he just speaking? I would ask him this when we have him.
Right.
Yeah.
So he doesn't stop. He does it like 4 or 5 times. I'm like, this guy is not going to stop. So I turn around and give him this look like, okay, you're going to have to do a little better.
Yeah.
So he walks over and he introduces himself and he opens his mouth, girl, and he has a row of gold teeth. So now I'm confused.
Yeah.
Because he has on like this khaki hat, some khaki, like a polo shirt, and then a mouthful of gold teeth. So
I wish he was here. I'd be like, Marcus.
I'm perplexed. I'm like, who is this guy? You look like a schoolboy, but you're giving me like hood vibes too, which I kind of liked at that time. So I was like, okay, you can have my number because I have questions.
You're more curious at this time. Like, what is going on with this guy? Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we exchanged numbers. We talked like every single day. We got really, really close. And during that time also, I was, reapplying to school. I decided I was going to transfer to Georgia State, which was in the city. Mm-hmm. And so that summer we hung out and kind of like solidified our relationship. Like it was a done deal. Like we were inseparable. His guy friends used to call me like, have you seen him? I'm like, yeah, he's right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we were always together. Yeah. And then I started up at Georgia State to finish my studies. And I remember the moment I realized that he was like a big deal. We were sitting down watching TV and he shows up in a commercial.
I didn't even tell you?
Girl, we're sitting there eating wings, like chilling. And this commercial comes on and he's in it. I don't even remember what it was. It was like an insurance commercial. It was something totally random. And he's like in there with the spokesperson. And I'm sitting there.
And he's still in college at this point?
Yes. And he's sitting there like he's seen the commercial 20 times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're on TV. Like, what is this? And he's like, oh yeah, I shot that like last summer. And I was like, but why are you in this commercial? Like, what is the significance? Yeah. And he's like, and he's, you know Marcus. Yeah. Like he's so humble. He's so laid back. Chill. He's just like, oh, they just asked me to do that because they needed somebody from Auburn. And so I was kind of like, okay, I think there's more to this story. And that was around the time where the draft came. And I didn't know anything about any of that,
Because it's intense, the whole draft day and all that. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And so, of course, he gets drafted and, is going to California. And I'm like, oh, my God, our relationship.
For the San Diego Chargers.
Yes, for the San Diego Chargers. So I'm like, it's over. Our relationship is over. Like, this is not going to work. I'm still in school. Yeah. You're about to go across the country.
Were you with him on draft day? Do you remember that? Or
No, I wasn't because like we had just started dating. Yeah. So, you don't bring the new girlfriend.
Oh, yeah. Because then you're on the TV and all that when they clap.
And
Okay,
I only met his family like a few times.
Okay.
No.
I don't really know much about all that. I just know sometimes.
He's a Southern boy. He did right.
Yeah.
Okay. If my son did that, I'd be like, who is this?
Yeah.
So
he gets drafted to the Chargers.
He gets drafted to the Chargers. He leaves, to start training because you know how it happens immediately. And so I just, continue my studies at Georgia State. And at that time, I decided, okay, I'm going to do some sort of graduate study. So during this time where we're apart, like we're still talking, but I'm focused on school. He's focused on football. And I have this interaction with this young lady at a restaurant, because I didn't tell you, my mother has always said you should be a lawyer. Like from day one, she's like, you need to be a lawyer. And I was kind of, I felt like it was kind of like that, like a little bit of shade, but like also like, no, I see this vision for you. And I just never thought, because I didn't know anybody in that field, that it was something that was really attainable for me. Like it felt like this career that was like out of my reach.
Yeah, like if you don't have any doctors in your family, like I can never be a doctor.
Right. And then like, how do you become a lawyer?
Yeah.
Like where do I start?
Yeah.
There was no one to really walk me through that. But I was having dinner. And this woman comes over, she's serving our drinks. And just through conversation, she lets me know that she's in law school. She's 3 kids. She's married. And for the first time, I was like, wait, if she can go to law school, well, damn it, so can I.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was, and I feel like that was God in that moment. Like he was like, no, you're looking for something and I know what that is for you. Here's this experience that you need to make it attainable and real.
Yeah. I feel like I want to pause for a second because I believe in that kind of stuff. Like God puts, or whatever it is you believe in, people believe in yours, whatever. For us, it's God.
Right.
That he puts people in place, like a random person. What was that? At a restaurant, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, at a restaurant, who is an example of like what to show, like, yes, exactly. Those are those moments. Those are not coincidences in my mind at all.
No.
100%. And if you start paying attention to those moments, you're being guided throughout your entire life. And that's like the thing. Once you start paying attention, and that's like them, like God, like helping you to where you're supposed to be.
Right. I was totally open.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this was meant to be. And I was so grateful because it sparked something in me.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, okay, I don't have anybody who's going to walk me through this. I don't know where to start, but I'm going to ask everybody I know.
Yeah.
Like,
are you graduated from 4-year at this point? Not yet.
No,
not
I'm
yet.
still in school. So I'm getting ready to enter my junior year. Well, I'm finishing up my junior year at this point, and I'm at Georgia State. And so, I meet a professor who was really, nice and sweet. And we began to have conversations, and she was like, I'll write you a letter of recommendation. Whatever you need, I'll do it. But then, Marcus and I are still dating, and I get pregnant.
So he's on the San Diego Chargers.
Yep.
You have all these plans to go to law school in Georgia, and then you get pregnant.
I get pregnant.
And then what are you thinking at this moment?
I'm like, okay, well, we're having a baby, right?
Yeah.
He's super excited.
Yeah.
I'm a little scared, but I'm like, okay, it could be worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I love this guy. We have a really great relationship. We've always been like really good friends, and that's the foundation of our relationship.
Can I pause for a second?
Yeah.
Let me tell you what kind of friends they are and lovers and stuff. They are so cute. We went to have dinner with you and Marcus, me and my boyfriend. They roll up in head to toe matching essentials, like a sweatshirt, sweats, like everything. And you guys have been married for how long now?
We've been together for 18 years, and married for 8.
And you're wearing matching to dinner.
Yes, girl.
So that's the kind of relationship you are. Okay, so backtrack.
That's my boo.
Yeah, okay. So you get pregnant.
Yes.
You know you love this guy. And then what happens from there?
So he's like, don't worry about anything. We're going to be fine. Finish school. We'll figure everything out. But
because you're not even done with the 4-year yet.
No, I'm not done. I'm getting ready to enter my senior year.
Okay.
And so
1 year left.
And so all of a sudden, the conversations that I was having with everyone else changed. Like my mindset didn't change, but the feedback. My professor was still down 100%, but my counselor was like, well, maybe you should consider something else.
Oh, like you weren't going to be able to become a lawyer?
Right.
Oh,
People
okay.
who were in my life were like, you may not be able
Like
to
it's
go to
gonna be
law
too
school
hard.
now. Yeah, it's going to be really hard. But for me, like I'm kind of like a dog with a bone when like I understand what my purpose and my mission is. It's like,
you're a bulldog in a good way.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the first woman who's had a kid who goes to law school. Like,
Yeah.
we'll work it out, right?
And I'm glad you had that, because a lot of women, and this is why we're doing this episode, at that point might just lose all hope. Like they look at it a different way. And I think that's why it's so important with your mind frame. Whenever anything happens to you, it's supposed to happen, I think. And you're in charge of the way you look at it, really. And you could have gone either way. You could have believed the naysayers, or you could have not, which
You're
is what you
right.
did.
You're right.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford to just walk away because I didn't want to just be an NFL player's girlfriend. We were not married at this point, so it wasn't like
That's true.
his lifestyle was my lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like I had the benefits of enjoying, the spoils of his labor, you know what I mean? Or the fruits of his labor, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, that wasn't mine. I didn't earn that. So I wasn't entitled to it.
Yeah.
So I always knew in the back of my mind, like, I've got to do something too to kind of hold my own, just in case this doesn't work out.
Yeah,
because the track record for NFL players and girlfriends from college, it didn't look good.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, I think. And I think it's very important. And everyone has their own path, but I feel like I've seen so many girls, it doesn't have to be an NFL player, it could be somewhere else, where they start becoming too dependent on their men. And then all of a sudden when it's done, they're asked out and they don't know what to do. And like they hadn't established. I have literally, I can think of a few friends that I wish I would have done this differently.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's very important to always keep your own, even if it's just your own little job at wherever. It doesn't need to be like some crazy ass lawyer. I mean, it can be
all the way there.
but as long as you have your own little money, your own little thing, your own
own
sense of identity, because I've seen so many women lose all that in the
Yeah.
moment. Okay, so you kept,
I had to have my own. And also I was inspired by him. Like he had achieved such a high level of success.
Yeah.
I felt like to be on his arm and to be his woman, like I needed to match that energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good.
So
Yeah, okay.
he inspired me too.
Yeah.
But I didn't listen to the naysayers. I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. We're going to figure it out, right? Because now I'm getting ready to have a baby. I'm finishing up undergrad. I'm applying to schools, but now I'm only applying to schools in San Diego because
When you say applying to schools,
law schools.
Law school.
I'm applying to law schools that are only in San Diego because, this is where my family is going to be. And so I move out here at the tail end of my trimester, my final semester.
4 year?
I'm
No.
still in my 4 year. Yeah.
Okay.
Finishing up my senior year of undergrad. And the professors are nice enough to be like, we get it. You're pregnant. Your family's out there. We'll allow you to do distance learning for the final semester.
Yeah.
So that was helpful. But I'm getting ready to pop and I'm still doing exams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Marcus is getting ready to start the season, and a lot of people don't realize when you are dating someone who's in that industry, they're hardly ever home. So they're always training. When they have away games or when they have home games, they have to stay at hotels. Girlfriends and wives are not permitted to stay in hotels. So, I'm due any moment. And I remember, and I don't think he'll care if I tell you this, but I remember there was, I don't know if you, do you know the Charger staff that well? I don't know.
Charger staff?
Yeah.
Some of them.
Okay, so there was this older man named Dick. He's like super old. He's been with the Chargers forever. He's retired now. But he was so sweet. He used to let me sneak in to the hotel because I was pregnant, and this was training camp.
Yeah.
So they're
we
in
like
town.
Dick. We like
Dick. They were in town.
Oh, that sounded bad. Yeah.
Well,
Dick, the guy that worked for the Chargers.
But let's clarify that.
That's going to be a clip. Oh, my God. Okay.
But he was so cool. He would literally wait until everybody was out and he would sneak me in so that I could at least sleep with him while I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful for that, But thank God he was in town when I delivered. We delivered, we had a healthy baby boy, and I spent a year just being a mom, and it was nice. And I will say it is not lost on me that I had the flexibility and the support of my now husband,
That you could stay at home and do
right,
it,
that I
'cause-
could stay home and just raise my baby and figure out what that next step would look like.
But at the same time, let me point out, so a lot of people are like, well, you have a rich football player husband, that went easy. But it also would have been very easy to just stay there and never go back and finish your career, which honestly, I feel like that's harder because say you don't have that rich person, significant, not rich, but like, you know what I mean? Successful person, that someone taking care of you.
Right.
It's very easy just to get complacent and probably just sit there. And then 20 years later, you're like, what the heck did I do with my life? Right.
Absolutely.
I almost want to say it's harder to be like, well, I don't really need to do this necessarily, but I'm going to do this for myself.
Right.
And that's what you did.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's kind of like the opposite for me. Like I'm wired a little differently. Like I get uncomfortable living on someone else's dime.
Yeah.
Like having someone else call all the shots, having to recognize that we can't move unless he co-signs on the move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as much as I trust him and I love him and I understand he's supportive, I wanted to be able to call my own shot.
Yeah. And I think that's very important as a woman to whatever extent, because again, I've seen so many people lose themselves and we're not, and I think you and Marcus are going to be together forever, but it's not even about whether or not you're going to be together. It's for your own sense of like identity. So you feel like, I don't know what it is, like confident, whatever it is, like for that, it's so important.
Absolutely. And that, it could have been anything. It didn't have to be law school. It had to be something that was mine.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
So you take a year off, not a year off, but like to be a mom, which is obviously everyone hopefully could do.
Yeah.
So where are you? You still didn't graduate from 4 year yet?
No, I'm done.
Oh, so you're done. So you were able to finish it. Oh, good for you on that.
I'm done. I got my degree. I didn't even walk with undergrad. I was like, just give me my piece of paper.
Yeah. Okay. So you finished it when you're
I finished.
pregnant. Okay.
Yeah. And then my son was probably around, I guess I'd say 2 when I actually was admitted to law school, because a lot of people don't know when you are applying to law school, you have to take an exam. So you take what is called the LSAT, which is like
hard.
Yeah. Well, it's not as hard as the bar, but it is very hard. It's going to, if you've never had any experience with the type of education that law school provides, it's going to test how you think. And if you've never had any training, then you probably don't perform really well on it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I've had friends who study the LSAT for like a year and still don't pass it, and then study again. And like, I've had people, you know,
You're probably talking about the bar.
Oh, really?
The bar is the one after
I
law
feel like
school.
the LSAT's really hard though, too, for the average person.
No, it probably is, but there's no pass or fail.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no pass or fail.
There's no pass or fail?
There's no pass or fail,
okay.
and it's
just a score.
I don't know what I'm talking about. No, it's all good, girl.
Okay. LSAT is hard though. I know that too.
It was.
Or not hard, but
I didn't do well.
You didn't do well.
I didn't do well because I didn't know what the hell they were testing. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I'm just going to answer the best I can. And so my score wasn't that high, so I could only get into what we deem in the industry is like a 4th tier school, which you have like your 1st tier schools, which are like Harvard and Emory and, you know, all those big names. And then there's schools that fall underneath that, like any other school ranking, right?
Yeah.
And then 4th tier schools are kind of like, your GPA was so-so, you may have partied a little bit too much, you know.
But it's still law school.
It's still law
Just
school.
Just like the 4th tier.
Right.
Okay.
So I was fine with that.
Okay.
And luckily there was a new one here that had a brand new building, and I was all about the vibe, rooftop study hall. I'm like, cool, done. Let's go. Right.
So you're okay.
I was cool. I enroll, get in. Marcus is super excited for me. This happens to be the same year that he's getting ready to retire.
Okay.
So my son is, 2008. He is getting ready to be like 3 years old.
Yeah.
And this is around the time when Marcus was injured.
Okay.
So this is like 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he suffers that massive injury. Our whole world is kind of shook up because now it's not about us being in San Diego, the consistency that we knew, like the life that we had built. It was like, wait, are you going to be able to walk? You know, are you going to be able to play with our kid, 10 years from now? Like, we're having to make these really serious decisions because he loves football, but the injury was significant, you know? And so at that point, I'm like, you've got to stop,
Yeah.
So.
And that probably was so hard for him also emotionally, because I've known a lot of football players and professional athletes and things like that. And it's like that's all they've known their whole life. And then all of a sudden, at a very young age still,
Yeah.
they're not like, it's not like they're retiring at
We're in our
55. Like they're still in their
20s.
20s.
Yeah.
They're being told that everything they know is no more. And so, and you as a spouse, you guys are not married at the time yet, but significant other, whatever, have to be there for him during
Absolutely.
all that too.
Yeah.
You know, so I can imagine how that was.
Oh, girl.
All while going to law school and having a 2-year-old.
Yes. Right. So it's like, you know, because you're right. When they live that life, like Marcus is a little different because he kind of fell into football later in life. Like he just happened to be great at it, you know?
Yeah.
Like he wasn't one of those people who like played, you know, when he was like 4 and 5 years old, but he did, but it was for fun. He thought he was going to be a basketball player.
Yeah. He's super tall.
Yeah, he's very tall.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, with this being his second contract, him feeling like, okay, I've already been in the Pro Bowl twice, you know, like I'm about to kill it, you know, like this is my year. I'm about to solidify myself in, I don't know, whatever Hall of Fame there is for like left tackles, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was like the loss of a dream, you know, and not really having a plan B because it happened at a time when he wasn't ready. But also like I'm aware that at the time that I'm starting my dream, he's having to grieve the loss of his.
Yeah.
And boy, was that tough.
I bet.
That was tough for us, you know, because also law school, your first year, you don't have a lot of free time.
No.
You're like, I gotta go study. I'm in the library, you know, like I'm barely able to get my kid to the nursery in the morning and then back to make sure that everybody's fed and happy, you know, because I'm still doing all of the things that I would normally do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you know, our relationship suffered. Like we ended up taking a break because he needed time to deal with his loss. He went to Atlanta. I was like, I can't go. Like, this is my first year of law school. Like,
so you stayed in California.
I stayed in California.
So, and you moved here, like...
Girl, I'm out here by myself.
With the baby?
With the baby.
And he moves back too?
Yes.
Marcus.
That's all right. I forgave him.
It's okay. Okay.
He was young. You know, I forgave him. I understood he needed to be somewhere that was normal for him, you know? And San Diego reminded him too much of the Chargers. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I understood
because also that team at the time was so like, because I was friends with a lot of them. It was when I first moved to San Diego too. And I always like say like they had a good young team and they would all hang out together. And like I felt like I was part of the team. Like it was just a good vibe.
It was a good vibe.
You know, so, and they ruled the city. They really did.
They did.
Like the city loved them.
They were like brothers. Yeah. It was a true camaraderie. Like I really liked all of them. There wasn't one person I was like, oh, that guy's weird. You know, like it was a lot of fun, you know? But, and I think that was it too, you know, not being able to really engage with them in the same way.
Like be part of it. And you feel like all of a sudden you're out or whatever. Yeah. Well, I don't understand, but as much as I could.
Yeah. So I forgive him. You know, he was
so
like,
you stay here in San Diego.
Girl, I stayed. I had no choice. I was like, I've applied to law school. They accepted me. You know, like this is where I have to be.
Law school's not something you just leave.
No. You know, and at that time, people were like, if you leave, you know, you may not get accepted to another school. And the weird thing about California, and this is very specific to the law school, like every law school for the most part starts their new class in the fall. So you can't start in the spring. You have to start in the fall and everybody finishes at the same time. Well, this particular school admitted me in the spring. So even if I wanted to, in my mind, leave, I would have to take another gap year. Like I'd have to sit down and wait until the next incoming class. And I didn't want to do that. I was like, I've waited too long for this. Like, this is my chance. Yeah. So I started law school. I'm killing it. I'm so afraid of failing. I'm killing it. You know what I mean?
You have no other choice too.
Yeah,
now this is kind of like single mother a little bit, right? So remember what we were talking about before is like, like single mom in California, your friends and family are here, you're in law school figuring it out, right?
Exactly.
And that I think is really commendable because a lot of people might have just given up at that point.
Girl, I couldn't. I had a little one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize, like for me, whereas you could look at your child as being like something, and I hate to say this, but some people will look at their kids like, gosh, it would be so much easier without you. You know, I could do this or I could do that. Like My little one was like my driving force. I was like, we got this, baby. Like mama's going to be a lawyer. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, And so I always knew that everything I was doing was going to make our lives better because, I'm not with my man anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to have to make some things shake.
Yeah.
So it was like putting all my eggs in that basket. And he came, of course, Marcus, got his senses together and was like, oh shit, I just left my whole family in San Diego. He comes back.
So he came back.
He came back.
Okay.
But I didn't let him come back. I was like, you left,
Yeah.
So
how long was he gone for?
We were apart for about a year.
A year.
It was like my first entire year of law school.
So I can imagine how that must feel too. Like you abandoned, like, yes, you're going through all this stuff, but as a single mom, like I've been taking care of our kid. I've been in law school. You left and now you're coming back. Like, you know what I mean? I would have felt like a little abandoned maybe, no matter what the reason is.
Yeah. I was grateful that he definitely provided for us.
Oh, during that
But
time.
I needed him to be there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Instead of like having to call somebody to sit with my kid or, you know what I mean? Like I would have much preferred he been there.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, I realized that it was probably better that he wasn't. Because I'm the type that, I'm going to put him first and, oh, how are you feeling? He's going through surgeries and things. Like my focus would have been on him as opposed to focusing on my studies.
Yeah.
And there's a chance I wouldn't have been as successful as I was in my first year. So
everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. I'm always looking for the silver lining.
Yeah.
So
and it also probably proved to you that like you can do it on your own.
Hell yeah.
Because you were by yourself,
Hell
right?
Yeah. And your first year is the hardest.
Yeah.
So if I got through that, I'm like, oh, the rest is going to be a breeze.
Yeah.
And when I tell you I was killing it, I'm walking into finals like, I'm about to ace this.
Nice. Yeah.
People are like, how is she so confident? I'm like, because I studied I needed it to live. Like it was the sort of drive where it's fear of failing, but also like realizing, like you said, like you have no plan B.
You have no choice.
This is it, you know?
All right, hold up. This is like your 20-second Gina the Latina PSA. I need you to like, comment, subscribe below because we want to keep this show going. So if you're liking what you're hearing, please do us a favor and like, comment, subscribe below and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Gina the Latina Show. That's The Gina the Latina Show. I don't know why I can't talk. Back to the show. And that confidence, I think, can we talk about that for a second? Like, I think confidence is almost like more than, like, if you are confident, I was literally talking about this yesterday with my boyfriend's son. If you are confident, you can really accomplish anything, right?
Yeah.
But how do you get that confidence, right? So, because we can say it, but how do you get it?
Right.
And for you, it was like, there is no plan B.
Right.
Right? Like, you have to make this happen.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also like trusting myself, like knowing that I could rely on me. And this also has a lot to do with my childhood, like my parents, them not being together, having separate spouses. My dad, he liked to party and live his life, so he wasn't always tuned in to what was going on with me. My mom, ultimately remarried and prioritized her relationship with her husband.
Yeah.
So you're growing up realizing like, you can't always rely on other people to get things done for you, to pour into you, to support you, to be that driving force.
Yeah.
And so you turn to yourself.
Yeah.
And
I think all those, like, because some people can look, that's my dog, by the way, if you're listening. Some people could look at those things as like, woe is me, like, oh, I had parents who separated, or oh, I had this and that. But I really look at them as like all this stuff that happened to me when I was quote unquote young made me who I am today. You know what I mean? And like, I think I love how you say the silver lining thing, because a lot of people will keep looking at these circumstances that happen to them and like kind of feed into them, right? Like, oh, well, if I would have had better parents, or if I would have had parents that stayed together, if I would have not grown up poor, if I would have, even rich people have their problems too, if I would have not had that, And so, but if you can look at like, well, all those things made me who I am today. And without that, I wouldn't be who I am today at all, Okay, so back to Marcus and your story. So he now is back. You finished 1 year of law school. How old is your son now?
He is
3, 4.
He's getting ready to turn 4.
Okay.
Yeah, he's getting ready, or he's 3 or 4. Can't remember. 4-ish.
Okay. Okay.
Something around there.
Okay.
Because I can't remember when he actually came back, but He comes back that first year, and I remember he's like, "Hey, I'm going to plan a trip for us." So he books a flight. He doesn't tell me, where we're going. I fly to Atlanta. I drop our son off with my now in-laws, and we go to St. Martin.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, this is beautiful." He rents this villa, and I was telling my son this story last night. So funny. And so we have this amazing week, reconnecting and hashing out things, because
Yeah.
a year is a long time. So, I know some stuff that happened that we need to talk about,
Yeah.
So we're going through everything. But he's like, I'm ready to be a family man. I recognize the error of my ways. I love you. And he proposes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I
you
say
said yeah?
yes, of
Okay.
course. And we fly home, newly engaged. And I remember going back to school with this like massive rock on my on my ring finger, and people being like, "What the hell just happened?" Because like I don't lead with my relationship with Marcus. I never have. So
Yeah.
like, especially if we're not together, but like no one knew that I was, his baby's mama or whatever, know. So my professors are looking at me sideways, like literally in the middle of a lecture, I see her eyes like diverting to my finger. She's like, and she finally asked me, she's like, "Oh, I see some, something happened, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I got engaged." And people are like, who is she getting married to?
Yeah, because the ring was huge.
Yeah, it was
Wait, do you have
massive.
it? Or, you don't have it
Girl,
on?
no, it was not my style. That's not my vibe.
How
Like,
big is that thing?
it was big. I was like, "Babe, yeah, that's just not me." I'm more of like a stack ring type of chick. Like I like to be subtle but chic.
Yeah.
So we got past that. But he definitely made an impression. He went big.
As he should.
And so at that point now my mindset is, okay, I need to be thinking about us as a family. He comes to me, he's like, "Well, babe, I really don't want to be in San Diego. I know you have 2 more years of law school, but is there any way we can move back to Atlanta?" Now, mind you, it's the spring that I'm finishing up. So that means that, or the fall that I'm finishing up. So that means the next season is spring. So I can't really transfer into law school.
And can you try? I thought that once you get you have to get your law degree in whatever state you're practicing, right? So you can't just transfer from California to Georgia.
Well, you can if you're in school.
If you're in school.
So they frown upon it because your ranking is established your first year of law school. So at this point, I am top 12% of my class. And I worked my ass off for that, right? But if I leave to go to another school, I lose that ranking.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, which in the bigger picture, now as a lawyer, it doesn't really mean anything. But in law school, you think that it means everything. It's the difference between you getting placed in the job of your dreams or like some backwood law office, right?
Yeah.
So I'm considering what I'm about to give up, also realizing that I may not even be accepted to these schools in Georgia because I'm asking them to do something that they don't do, which is accept a student in the middle of their school year.
Yeah.
So I'm calling the schools there. They're shutting me down. They're like, "No, we don't accept students in the middle of the school year." Emory at the time.
Which, by the way, remember, Emory we're back to about
top
the tiers.
Yes.
Emory's top tier. You were like a fourth tier.
I'm in a fourth tier.
Yeah.
Right?
So Emory's a top tier.
Yes.
Okay.
Fourth tier, 12% of my class, top of my class, which to Emory is probably like, okay, you're top 12% of a fourth tier school, right?
Yeah.
That's how they're looking at me. But I'm calling them because the woman on the phone, she gave me a glimpse of hope. She's like, "Well, I know the board is talking about it, but I don't know that they're going to make a decision before it's time for you to actually transfer." That's all I needed to hear. I was like, "Okay, well, I'm just going to keep calling." I'm calling this woman every week. I'm like, have they made a decision? Yeah.
Hi, it's me.
It's Ivy again. Have they reached a decision? What's going on? She's like, "No, they haven't." So it's getting to the point where, he's putting a little bit more pressure on me. And he's like, "Well, if I need to, would you be okay if I go to Atlanta and start setting up our home there?" Because at this point, he's thinking about his plan B. Like, I need to start establishing what my new career is going to be. I have more relationships there. I would like to start. I don't want to be idle. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's what it has to be. But I really didn't want that. I didn't want us to separate again. So I said, okay, fine. It's Thanksgiving break. I said, I'm gonna I'm gonna schedule a school trip to Emory and I'm gonna pretend that I want a tour of the school. So I sign up online, but my plan is to show up and to basically like ambush the director of admissions.
Mm-hmm.
So I get there, go into the room where all these, new students are interested in touring the law school. So I sit through their orientation. I'm like, yeah. So they get up to go take the tour and I hang back.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to the woman in the admissions office and I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Ivy. She's like, oh my gosh. She's like, you're Ivy.
Because you had called her so many
called her like
times.
100 times. I kid you not. I know this woman knew my number, and thank God for her because she was sweet.
Yeah.
And she was an angel every time, and she answered.
Yeah.
And she didn't have to.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my goodness, it's so nice to meet you. Like, I didn't even have to say anything else. She's like, oh, well, the director of admissions
knew what
isn't
you
here.
wanted
Yeah,
already.
she already knew. She's like, but our associate director of admissions is here. So this woman, she comes in, she's like, oh, hey, this is Ivy. And she's like, oh, I've heard so much about you. And so she's like, yeah, let's talk. So I go into her office and she proceeds to tell me, I know you really want to transfer, but we're just not accepting, transfers in the middle of the school year. So at this point, I'm feeling super defeated, right?
Yeah.
I walk out of her office and the director of admissions walks in. Now, and I forgot to share that I called everybody I knew at this point. I'm like, do you know anybody at Emory? Anybody who's graduated from Emory? I'm like, send them an email. I have friends all over the world at this point. And they're like, well, we're just going to email them. I don't know them, but I'll just send them an email, you know?
Which, by the way, is a lesson in like A, persistence, and B, like use your contacts.
Hell
like just put it out there in the universe.
It doesn't hurt, right? What's the worst they could say? No. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I run into him and the woman who had been answering my calls all this time, she says, hey, this is Ivy. And the look on his face, he's like, do you know how many people have called me?
But he remembered you.
Yes. He's like, do you know how many people he goes, do you know how many people have called me about you, girl? That's what he said.
So all the people that you were reaching out to like, hey, can you put a good word in? And they like, so many people. So he had known Ivy.
Yes.
So it worked. Like,
it worked.
It worked enough for him to know who you were because he might have been like, who the heck are you?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
At that point, I had sent the application, written a letter. I'd done everything I was supposed to do, sent my transcripts, everything. So he goes, do you know how many people have called me about you, girl? And I'm kind of like, yeah, but at this, point, I'm feeling a little defeated that he's going to tell me the same thing the associate director just told me. And he tells the woman at the front, he says, grab her file, put it in my office. He was like, come on, Ivy, let's go talk.
And he's like, I want you to stop calling me. Let's go talk.
Yeah. So we go in his office. He looks over the file. He's like, I'm really impressed. You're very persistent. You've had everybody, call me. I'm like, I'm serious. Like, I really want to be here.
Yeah.
And he says, okay. He says, well, let me see what I can do. I'm going to call you. This is the holiday break, right?
Yeah.
So this is like, we're getting ready to celebrate Thanksgiving and everything. We finished celebrating the holiday. We head back to San Diego. I think it was like the Tuesday I was getting ready to go to school. He calls my cell phone, him personally. And he's like, can you be ready in 2 weeks? Because we're going to accept you. I bawled. I was crying like an ugly cry. I was like, thank you, God. Like, because, that stuff just doesn't happen. And and I didn't realize it till later, but they had only accepted 2 people.
2 people.
It was me and one other young lady, and I didn't know her personal situation, but I just thought that was just a testament to like not giving up.
Yeah.
And also reinforcing the fact that I was supposed to be there.
Top tier school.
Yeah, like I should have been there to begin with, and God just found a way to get me right back where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
you have 2 weeks to move all your stuff.
Packed up everything.
Left San Diego. I start at Emory. It was a breeze because people don't realize this, and I hate to say it because I love Emory, but being in a 4-tier school, they're harder on you. They want you to prove yourself a lot more because you're at this school that doesn't really give you a lot of credit and weight just with the name on the certificate, right? Emory was a little bit more laid back. Oh, wow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Everybody there was very, very smart, but it wasn't so much pressure.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, let's learn what we can learn and enjoy and just be great, you know? And I finished, and finished law school. My son was there at my graduation. I have this amazing picture of me hugging him with like my cap and gown on. It was just such a special moment. And I guess I graduated in December. Well, I graduated and then, I graduated in December and we walked that following summer. But I got married January. So it was like boom, boom, boom. Graduated from law school, married January 1st. And then in between all of that, I had been offered this dream position to work in-house, which is unheard of because when you're a new lawyer, they want you to grind. You're an associate lawyer. They put you in the dungeon and you're doing everybody's work and you're not sleeping, and in-house is more like super laid back. It's something that is gifted to the most senior and veteran attorneys, right? Oh. But I had met this woman who worked for the company and I knew I didn't want to do litigation and work my ass off and lose sleep and not be available for my family. And so she said, well, why don't you, come in and shadow me for a day? And I shadowed her and fell in love with the job and interviewed for it. And they loved me.
And you got it.
And I got it.
That's awesome.
And it was just an easy, smooth transition from there. I worked there for several months, kind of like in this starter position. And then I had to start really studying for the bar. That's what you were talking about, where people take it and years? Don't pass. Yeah. And so I was so grateful for Marcus, to be there because I literally survived off of I think my going snack was like a Snickers ice cream bar and Red Bull.
All day.
That was what I ate to get through. And he took care of our son. I didn't have to worry about anything.
He made up for that year he left.
He did.
Yeah.
He made up.
Good job, Marcus.
He's been making up for it since then.
So you passed the bar.
I passed the bar on my first attempt.
Look at you. That's top tier school.
That's top tier. You know what I mean?
And
it was also I can't fail. I had this job that was dependent on me passing the bar, and I didn't want to be embarrassed.
They might be like, bye.
Yeah, I don't. Now that I look back, they probably wouldn't have, but it wouldn't have looked good. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started working there and the rest is history, I loved being in-house. But then of course we had our second child and decided we wanted to move back
to San Diego. You guys have moved back and forth a lot.
He's gonna shake some things up.
Yeah. So you moved back to San Diego for your kids.
Yes.
But then you have your can you practice here?
So
you can't practice in California.
No. I know, right?
Right.
So being in-house, I was licensed in Georgia. If I had stayed in that in-house role, I could have come to California, but I would have had to work for another company. And because we were moving and I had a new baby, she was under 1, right? I said, okay, I'm just going to hang out for a second. I'm just going to raise her. We'll get our son situated because we moved in 2 weeks.
2 weeks again?
Yes, because when we called, it was really about schools.
Yeah.
Marcus was entering middle school. He was at that age where we were looking for some really good schools, and I didn't like the schools that were out in Georgia. And I also didn't want to live in some of the communities out there. Yeah. They weren't as diverse as I wanted. And so Marcus had this great idea. He's like, well, check the house in Cali.
Yeah.
The schools were great. I love it out here. It's extremely diverse. So I called them. I'm like, when do you guys start? They're like 2 weeks.
I remember because all of a sudden, you guys were back, and I'm like, wait, okay, cool.
It was that.
Quick. It was quick.
I had to get everything together really quickly, and I said, cool, I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mom for a little bit. And that lasted for 6 months.
6 months. You were not meant to be a stay-at-home mom.
I'm not. I'm not cut out for it. No, I don't knock it. It takes a very strong woman to be a stay-at-home mom.
I always say that. We are not knocking. It is harder to be a stay-at-home parent than it is to go to work.
Absolutely.
And I know that because my cousin, he's a stay-at-home dad, which is very non-traditional. But I get off work early. So I've spent half the day with him. I'm like, oh, hell no, I'd rather be going to work.
Yes,
it's a lot of work. Yes.
And for me, I needed that stimulation mentally. I needed something, again, of my own, And so
here you go.
Here I go again on this new phase. My former VP at the company I worked with, she said, well, hey, why don't you start your own firm and we will funnel you work? And I said, okay, we'll see. So I kind of sat with it for a second and finally set everything up. And when I called her back to let her know I had set everything up and was ready to go, I mean, the work started just pouring in. Like my salary when I was in-house was tripled when I
Mm,
started my firm.
yeah.
And I was like, look at God.
Look at God, right?
Like, look, I couldn't have imagined this, planned this, orchestrated it myself. Like, I felt like I was being moved in all these different places
Yeah.
without my own control. And every time I'm like, well, here we are.
Just trust.
Yeah,
I
let's
have like
figure this
literally
out.
this tattoo for that. Like, just have faith. Like,
Yes.
wherever you're supposed to be, even if it doesn't make sense or if your life is uprooted in 2 weeks, like there is a reason for that. I
Yes.
believe that 1,000%. And just go
Absolutely.
with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that meme where it's like the little girl and I don't know, it's supposed to be Jesus, I guess, but yeah, it kind of looks like somebody else. But anyways,
Yeah.
there's like she has this little teddy bear and she's holding it and he's obviously asking her to hand it over, but behind his back he has like this giant teddy bear.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my
That
life
trust.
has felt like. You know, like I'm kind of a little hesitant to let go of where I am because I'm like, oh Lord, this is about to be uncomfortable. But if this is where we're going,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And then you get there and it's better than you could have even imagined.
And that's one of the lessons I feel like I've learned. Like you feel like change is like so scary, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't change, you'll never grow, right?
Absolutely.
And you can stay like even for a little example, like, you know, my old condo, it was scary to like buy this house,
Oh, I
right?
bet.
Because you're just like, what, you know, blah, blah, blah. Can I afford it? Do this. But then now like just the blessings keep coming in and it's not, it's hard to explain, but it's like just if an opportunity comes and it feels right,
Mm-hmm.
go with it,
Go
even
with
if you
it.
don't know what the outcome is going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So so now you're the founding attorney at Canary. Say it, all right.
Canary and Hedge.
Canary and
Yes.
Hedge here in San Diego. You do trademarks.
I do trademarks, contracts, copyright registration, consulting. Like I've been able to take that initial opportunity and create something that is more authentic for me. So I
Yeah.
work primarily with small business owners, creative entrepreneurs, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
There's nothing stuffy about it.
No,
It's
she's so like, I like ask no questions dumb. I'm like, oh, Ivy, I'm sorry, this probably sounds dumb,
I
but like
love
you
it.
love. She created like a little advent calendar for new business owners. I tell people because so many people start their businesses and they don't know like what to do, right? And so you started this advent calendar, which you sold it around like the holidays,
season.
but I'm like, you got to make this available all year round because if you're starting a new business, it's really like day 1 do this, day 2 do this, and that's what we need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I find that like my impact is greater than when I was working in-house or what I envisioned my life to be like. Like I'm actually able to sit across from clients like you or other clients and witness the growth. You know, like I see how you guys come to me and you're like, girl, I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. Help
point me in the right direction. Or better yet, can you just do it? You know? And that's fine, you know. But then as we walk through this process, because I'm a big educator, I love the education part, like the piece that I have with the consultations and meeting with clients, because you guys have to know this in order to be successful entrepreneurs. Like once I see that really click and you guys take that and manifest it into something amazing with your business ventures, I'm like a proud mama. Like, you go ahead. Like, that's my baby right there, you know? Like, I really do get attached to my clients and I get invested in their success because I recognize how difficult it is. And being an entrepreneur,
I know.
That's like going to law school. You know what I mean? Like, I don't take it lightly. Like, it is hard work and you're building and creating something that sometimes you've never seen anybody else do before. You know, there's no blueprint to it.
Yeah. So where can people find you if they want to help with it in this area?
Oh, you can find me online. I'm on Instagram more than anything else.
And what's your Instagram?
It's at Legally Ivy. And then the firm is at Canary and Hedge. The website is www.canaryandhedge.com. And I have free consultations, you know, just because it's important to kind of have that introductory discussion so you can figure out where you even are and what you need. And then from there, you know, we can hit the ground running.
And she's not like a scary lawyer because some people are like lawyer that like your fees are pretty upfront. Like you get a consultation. It's not like sometimes you feel like you're gonna go to a lawyer and you're like gonna get this big old bill. That's not how, like Ivy is very upfront about everything, very affordable in my opinion. One last thing though before we end, I wanted to ask you, what if you could give one piece of advice to, say, not just women, but people who might be in a situation where they have like all these things thrown at them that, like, and they have this goal and feel like there's no way I can accomplish that. What would be your advice to them?
Oh, I would say do it anyway.
Do it anyway.
Do it despite being in doubt, because you will surprise yourself 9 times out of 10. You know what I mean? A lot of times we don't move or we get stagnant out of fear, and the time is going to pass anyways. So you could spend it working towards your dream, or you could spend it and waste it just being in doubt, wishing that you were moving in that direction. And
That is
so just
absolutely true.
do it.
Yes. Well, thank you, Ivy, for
Thank
coming
you
on my
for having
podcast.
me.
Thank you.